On September 22nd, the Indo-Pakistani War of 1965 came to a ceasefire after the United Nations stepped in. This short but brutal war would come to a formal end in January of 1966 with the Tashkent Declaration. The armed conflict that lasted for about 17 weeks was an exploding powder keg waiting to happen, with massive military deployments taking place in the months prior. The fighting erupted over the Himalayan territory of Kashmir, which was and still is a hotly contested area even before the partition of India that resulted in the modern states of Pakistan and India post-British colonial rule. Though the local government had initially teetered towards India, disputes and political tensions over the Kashmir region never ceased, resulting in 3 wars and continuing military skirmishes between the 2 nuclear powers of South Asia. The 1965 war began as a result of Pakistan's Operation Gibraltar, which aimed to provoke insurgent activity against the Indian government. The war quickly escalated, resulting in almost 7,000 deaths. The war included the battles of Chawinda and Asautar, the latter alone which saw to the participation of almost 400 armored vehicles and tanks fighting, making both battles the largest tank battles ever in modern history since World War II. What made this bloody war quite significant was the international scope in which we historians must analyze it, as those back then did similarly. The Cold War was in full swing. The United States and its allies squaring off against the Soviet Union and its allies culturally, technologically, and politically all over the globe pushed the 1965 Indo-Pakistani War into a brighter spotlight. The United States and the United Kingdom had close military and logistic ties with both Pakistan and India. However, during and after the war, both the US and UK were perceived to have not been supported enough by both Pakistan and India in many of the usual capacities privately or publicly. As a result of this, India and Pakistan sought other countries for similar relationships, and within the Cold War context, it was the Soviet Union and neighboring China that could provide such support the next time a conflict would occur. Such a growth in relations would even involve India in the formation of the political and economic entity that some of you may know as BRICS: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, that strengthened ties especially between India and Russia. This war, when and how it ended, is important to understand not just as history then, but history now, as many are confused by why the Indian government doesn't outright condemn the ongoing Russian-Ukraine war and has for the most part stayed neutral within the United Nations chambers regarding Russia's aggression, and why political analysts sound the bell whenever Russian President Vladimir Putin takes a trip to India.